Don't wait for me at the Christmas party. I'm with my perfect dream woman, her husband said. But when she finally saw that woman's face, she burst out laughing because she was... Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family channel. May the Almighty wrap every woman in a protection so strong that no sadness can touch her, and a love so deep that her heart finally feels the peace she deserves. May He crown you with honor for every sacrifice you made quietly, for every tear you hid, for every moment you stayed strong while the world leaned on your shoulders. I pray your nights soften with comfort, your mornings open with hope, and every step you take be blessed with a light that guides you to joy. May every pain turn into wisdom, every struggle turn into strength, and every prayer you whispered alone be answered in ways that leave you speechless. You are not just loved, you are treasured, you are lifted, you are seen by heaven. If your heart is true, like the video, if your love is real, write, I am with Mr. Peter. Millie Ortega stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the emerald green dress that hugged her curves perfectly when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it absently, expecting a message from her assistant about the seating arrangements for tonight's Christmas gala. What she saw instead made her blood turn to ice. Don't wait for me at the Christmas party. I'm with my perfect dream woman. Below the text was a photo. Just the back of a woman's head, distinctive auburn hair catching the light, and a small beauty mark visible on the pale skin of her neck. Millie's hand began to shake. She knew that beauty mark. She knew that exact shade of auburn hair. But it couldn't be. It was impossible. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Gavin, her husband of 8 years. She's everything I've been looking for. Don't call, don't text, just accept it. Millie sat down hard on the edge of their king-sized bed, the bed they'd shared for nearly a decade, and felt something inside her shift. Not break, shift, like tectonic plates moving beneath the surface of her skin, rearranging her entire foundation. She looked at herself in the mirror again, 42 years old, successful interior designer with her own thriving firm, beautiful brown skin glowing with health, natural hair styled in elegant twists. She'd built herself into someone she was proud of, someone strong, someone who didn't crumble when life tried to crush her. And life had tried before. Millie stood up, smoothed her dress, and picked up her clutch. The company Christmas gala waited for no one, not even women whose husbands had just detonated their marriages via text message. She applied her lipstick with a steady hand, spritzed her signature perfume, and walked out of the bedroom without looking back. The grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel glittered with 1,000 white lights when Millie arrived. Her design firm had decorated the space, transforming it into a winter wonderland that had clients gasping with delight. Everywhere she looked, she saw her work, her vision, her success. Millie, you look absolutely stunning. Rebecca from accounting rushed over, champagne glass in hand. Where's Gavin? I thought he'd be here by now. Millie smiled, the kind of smile that could cut glass if you weren't careful. Following his dreams, she said smoothly. You know how he is. Rebecca laughed, not catching the edge in Millie's voice. Well, you're glowing tonight. Seriously, what's your secret? Knowing my worth, Millie replied, and moved deeper into the crowd. She worked the room like the professional she was, smiling, laughing, accepting compliments on her dress and the decorations. No one could see the storm raging beneath her calm exterior. No one could see the way her mind was racing, calculating, planning. That auburn hair, that beauty mark. Jenna Sweeney, it had to be her. But Jenna was supposed to be gone, disappeared 3 years ago after their brief, intense, and ultimately toxic friendship had imploded. Millie had ended it when she realized Jenna was manipulating her, using her, trying to steal from her business. Jenna had vanished without a trace after that confrontation, and Millie had been relieved. Now she was back, and she had Gavin. Everyone, can I have your attention, please? Marcus, the CEO of the architectural firm that shared office space with Millie's company, tapped his champagne glass. "I'd like to propose a toast to Millie Ortega, whose incredible design work made this evening possible." The crowd applauded. Millie felt 100 pairs of eyes turn toward her. She could walk away, let someone else give the speech, hide in the bathroom and cry like Gavin probably expected her to do. Instead, she walked to the front of the room and took the microphone. "Thank you, Marcus. Thank you all for being here tonight." Her voice rang out clear and strong across the ballroom. "You know, I've learned something important this year. I've learned that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about how you rise when someone tries to push you to the ground." The room had gone completely silent. It's about knowing your value when someone else tries to convince you that you're worthless. It's about standing tall when everything in you wants to collapse. She paused, letting her words sink in. "This year has taught me that I am stronger than I ever knew, that I am worth more than I ever believed, and that the people who can't see that, they don't deserve a place in my life." She raised her glass. "So here's to all of us. Here's to knowing our worth. Here's to choosing ourselves when no one else will. Here's to being unbreakable." "To being unbreakable," the room echoed, champagne glasses raised high. Millie saw tears in several women's eyes. She saw Marcus looking at her with concern and something else, respect. She saw the moment everyone realized that Gavin wasn't just late, he wasn't coming. She stayed for another hour, gracious and charming, before slipping out into the cold December night. Once in her car, she sat for a long moment, breathing in the silence. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. "Jameson, it's Millie Ortega. I need you to work tonight." Jameson ran the best moving service in the city, the kind that asked no questions. "I need everything belonging to Gavin Bailey removed from my house and delivered to his office by midnight. Everything. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, his golf clubs, that ugly ceramic duck his mother gave us. All of it." "That's a tall order for Christmas Eve, Miss Ortega. I'll pay triple your usual rate." "Consider it done." Millie hung up and started the car. As she drove home through streets lined with Christmas lights, she thought about the woman in that photo. If it was really Jenna, then this wasn't just about a man cheating on his wife. This was personal, this was revenge, and Millie Ortega didn't lose at anything. She pulled into her driveway and sat for a moment, looking at the house she'd made into a home. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of building a life together, 8 years that Gavin had just thrown away with a text message and a photo of another woman's hair. Inside, the house felt different already, like it knew what was coming. Millie walked through each room, touching nothing, just looking. In the kitchen, she found the Christmas cookies they'd baked together last weekend. In the living room, the tree they'd decorated while arguing playfully about whether tinsel was tacky or classic, all of it meaningless now. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jameson. "Crew is on the way. We'll have everything packed and delivered by 11:30. Millie opened her laptop and began drafting an email to her divorce attorney. Then she poured herself a glass of wine, sat on her couch, and waited. At 11:15, her doorbell rang. She opened it to find Jameson and his crew, efficient and professional. They worked in silence, packing Gavin's life into boxes with remarkable speed. Suits, casual clothes, his collection of vintage watches, his running shoes, everything. "What about the wedding photos?" Jameson asked, nodding toward the mantel. Millie looked at the silver-framed picture of her and Gavin on their wedding day, both of them young and hopeful, and so certain they'd make it. She picked it up, studied it for a long moment, then handed it to Jameson. "Pack it, all of it." By 11:30, Gavin's presence had been erased from her home. Millie stood in the empty closet space where his clothes had hung and felt the strangest sensation, not grief, but relief. Like she'd been holding her breath for years and could finally exhale. She wrote a note and tucked it into one of the boxes. "Your dream woman can help you unpack. Merry Christmas. M." As the moving truck pulled away, Millie walked through her house one more time. It felt lighter somehow, freer, like the walls themselves were breathing easier without the weight of a failing marriage pressing down on them. She climbed into bed alone for the first time in 8 years and fell into the deepest sleep she'd had in months. Tomorrow, the war would begin. Tonight, she rested. Because Millie Ortega wasn't the woman Gavin thought she was. She wasn't the woman who would cry and beg and fall apart when abandoned. She was the woman who would rise from these ashes, stronger, fiercer, and more powerful than ever. And if Jenna Sweeney really was back, if this was really her twisted idea of revenge, then she was about to learn a very important lesson. Millie Ortega didn't just survive betrayal. She conquered it. Chapter 2. When he came crawling back. Gavin Bailey stood in the lobby of his office building at 6 in the morning, surrounded by boxes of his entire life, and felt the first real flutter of panic in his chest. He'd spent Christmas night with Jenna in her apartment, drinking champagne and celebrating his freedom. She'd been everything he'd dreamed of, passionate, exciting, telling him everything he wanted to hear about how his wife didn't appreciate him, didn't understand him, didn't deserve him. But as dawn broke through the windows, reality had started creeping in. His phone had been flooded with messages from his mother, his sister, his best friend Carter, all of them asking the same question. What the hell did you do? And now this. All his belongings, professionally packed and delivered to his workplace like he was some kind of vagrant being evicted. The note from Millie was still in his hand, her handwriting elegant and controlled even in anger. The security guard, Raymond, had been watching him for the past 20 minutes with a mixture of pity and judgment. Rough night, Mr. Bailey. Something like that, Gavin muttered, pulling out his phone. He'd tried calling Millie 17 times on Christmas Day. Every call went straight to voicemail. He'd driven by their house, his house, and found all the lights off, her car gone. He'd texted, apologized, tried to explain that he'd made a terrible mistake, that the text was sent in a moment of confusion, that he didn't mean it. Nothing. Radio silence. Now, standing in his office lobby at dawn the day after Christmas, Gavin did what he should have done before sending that catastrophic text. He got in his car and drove home. The December morning was bitter cold, frost coating everything in a crystalline layer. When he pulled into the driveway, he saw Millie's car parked exactly where it always was. Relief flooded through him. She was home. They could talk. He could fix this. He used his key in the front door, but it didn't work. She'd changed the locks. Of course she had. Gavin rang the doorbell and waited. Through the frosted glass, he could see movement inside. The door opened, and Millie stood there in a cream silk robe, coffee cup in hand, looking more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. Her natural hair was in a high puff, her skin glowed with some kind of inner light, and her eyes, God, her eyes were completely calm. Millie, thank God. We need to talk. I made a horrible... No! Her voice was quiet but absolute. What? No, you're not coming in. No, we're not talking inside. Whatever you have to say, you can say it right here. Gavin glanced around, seeing Mrs. Patterson from next door already peeking through her curtains. Millie, please, it's cold. Let's be adults about this. Adults? Something flashed in her eyes, quick and dangerous. Adults don't send their wives text messages on Christmas Eve telling them they've found someone better. Adults don't abandon their partners at a company event to be humiliated in front of colleagues. But you're right. Let's be adults, Gavin. Let's be very adult about this. She stepped onto the porch, pulling the door closed behind her. The morning cold didn't seem to touch her. You have 48 hours to make a choice. You want to try to save this marriage? You end whatever this is with your perfect dream woman immediately. You move back in and we go to couples therapy. Or you choose her and we proceed with divorce. Those are your options. There is no third choice where you get to keep both of us while you figure out your feelings. Millie, it's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, she cut him off. You don't get to complicate this with your confusion or your crisis or whatever story you're telling yourself. You made a choice on Christmas Eve. Now I'm giving you a chance to unmake it or commit to it. 48 hours. Who is she, anyway? Gavin found himself asking. You don't even know her. Then tell me, what's her name? Gavin hesitated, but something in Millie's expression made him answer. Jenna. Jenna Sweeney. I met her 6 months ago at a conference in Manhattan. He watched his wife's face very carefully. He saw the exact moment recognition hit, a tiny flicker in her eyes, a barely perceptible tightening of her jaw. Then it was gone, replaced by that same eerie calm. Where is she from? Millie asked, her voice steady. Washington State. Seattle area, I think. Why? And what does she do? She's a consultant, financial restructuring. Millie, why does this matter? Because I like to know my enemies, Gavin. She took a sip of her coffee, completely unruffled. Jenna Sweeney from Washington. How interesting. You're acting crazy. No, Millie said, and now her voice dropped to something cold enough to freeze blood. Crazy would be me standing here begging you to come back. Crazy would be me crying and asking what I did wrong. Crazy would be me accepting your apology and pretending you didn't just blow up our entire life for someone you've known for 6 months. She moved closer to him, so close he could smell her perfume. I am not crazy, Gavin. I am clear-headed for the first time in years. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to get in your car, drive back to wherever you spent last night, and really think about what you want. Not what feels exciting or new or different. What you actually want. Because this, she gestured between them, this marriage, you broke it. And I'm not interested in spending the rest of my life with a man who breaks things when he gets bored. I love you, Gavin said, and realized he meant it. I made a mistake. I got confused. Jenna made me feel 48 hours, Millie repeated. That's all you get. Choose. She turned and walked back into the house, closing the door firmly behind her. Gavin heard the deadbolt slide home with a finality that made his stomach turn. He stood on the porch for another minute, then walked back to his car. As he pulled out of the driveway, he saw Mrs. Patterson still watching from her window. His phone buzzed. His mother. Don't even think about calling me until you fix this mess with Millie. I didn't raise a fool, Gavin Michael Bailey. He drove aimlessly for an hour, his mind spinning. Jenna had been amazing these past few months, attentive, passionate, making him feel young again. But standing on that porch, seeing Millie's strength, her absolute refusal to be diminished by what he'd done, he'd felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, pride in his wife and shame in himself. His phone rang. Jenna, baby, where are you? I woke up and you were gone. I had to take care of something, he said, his voice flat. Did you see her? Your wife? Jenna's voice dripped with something he couldn't quite name. Satisfaction, maybe. How did she take it? Not well. The lie came easily. He didn't know why he lied, but something told him not to tell Jenna about Millie's calm, controlled response. Oh, poor Gavin, it's so hard when they don't understand, but she'll get over it, they always do. A pause. You're still choosing me, right? You're not having second thoughts? No, he said, but even as the word left his mouth, he wasn't sure if it was true. I need to go, Jenna. I'll call you later. He hung up before she could respond and pulled into a parking lot. For a long moment, he just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, trying to remember when everything had gotten so complicated. 6 months ago, his marriage had been fine, not perfect, but fine. Millie had been busy with her business, he'd been busy with his job, they'd been like two planets orbiting in the same solar system but never quite touching. Then Jenna had walked into that conference in Manhattan, beautiful and interested, and making him feel like he was the most fascinating man in the world. He told himself it was harmless, just conversations, just dinners, just someone who understood the pressures of his work life. But somewhere along the way, it had become more. Jenna had a way of making him feel necessary, important, desired, in a way he hadn't felt in years. When had Millie stopped looking at him like that? When had they stopped being partners and started being roommates? His phone buzzed again. A text from his sister Emma. Mum told me what you did. Are you insane? Millie is the best thing that ever happened to you. Fix this. Then Carter, his best friend since college. Dude, everyone's talking. What the hell happened at the Christmas party? Call me. Then his boss. Gavin, I heard about the situation with Millie. I hope you two can work it out. She's a remarkable woman. Let's talk Monday about your Q1 projects. Everyone was on Millie's side. Everyone thought he was the villain, and maybe he was. Gavin drove back to Jenna's apartment, a modest place in a neighborhood that was trying to be trendy, but wasn't quite there yet. She opened the door in one of his shirts, smiling that smile that had captivated him 6 months ago. There you are. I was starting to worry. Come here, baby. Let me make you forget all about her. She pulled him inside, kissed him deeply, and for a moment he let himself fall into it. This was easier. Jenna didn't challenge him, didn't look at him with that expression Millie had, the one that said she could see right through every excuse and justification. But as Jenna pulled him toward the bedroom, his phone buzzed one more time. He glanced at it. A text from a number he didn't recognize. Ask Jenna where she's been for the past 2 years. Ask her why she really came to New York. Ask her what she wants with your wife. A friend. Gavin stopped walking. Jenna, where did you say you were before you moved to New York? She stiffened slightly just for a second, then relaxed. Seattle, baby, I told you that. Why? And you moved here 6 months ago? About that, yeah. Why all the questions? Her smile was still in place, but something had shifted in her eyes. Just curious, he said, pocketing his phone. Just getting to know you better. But as she led him to the bedroom, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered that he'd made a terrible, irreversible mistake, and that voice sounded exactly like his wife's calm, controlled tone when she'd said, I like to know my enemies, Gavin. What the hell had he walked into? Chapter 3. The Dinner from Hell. Millie stood in front of her closet, examining her options with the strategic focus of a general preparing for battle. She'd chosen a burgundy wrap dress that showcased her curves and made her skin glow, paired with heels that added 3 inches to her height. Not because she needed Gavin or his mistress to find her attractive, but because she wanted them both to see exactly what he'd thrown away. She'd spent the day after her confrontation with Gavin researching. One phone call to an old colleague who worked in criminal justice had confirmed what she'd suspected the moment Gavin said the name Jenna Sweeney from Washington, Jenna Marie Sweeney, released from Washington State Correctional Facility for Women 4 months ago after serving 2 years of a 5-year sentence for fraud and identity theft. The early release had come from good behavior and prison overcrowding. She'd been paroled to New York State, where she had no known family or connections, except one. 3 years ago, before Jenna went to prison, she and Millie had been close. Too close. What had started as a friendship during a particularly difficult time in Millie's marriage had evolved into something more. Stolen moments, passionate conversations, a connection that had felt electric and dangerous all at once. Millie had been vulnerable, lonely, and Jenna had known exactly how to exploit that. When Millie had finally come to her senses and realized Jenna was manipulating her, trying to gain access to her business accounts and client information, she'd ended it. Harshly. Jenna had threatened her, told her she'd regret it, then vanished. A month later, Millie had learned through mutual acquaintances that Jenna had been arrested for a scam involving fake investment opportunities. Now Jenna was back, and she'd chosen the most devastating way possible to hurt Millie, by taking her husband. Millie's doorbell rang at exactly 7. She opened it to find Gavin standing there, looking uncomfortable in a suit that suddenly seemed too tight. Behind him, stepping out of a black sedan, was Jenna Sweeney. 3 years had changed her. The softness was gone, replaced by a harder edge. Prison had carved lines around her mouth and eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. But she was still beautiful. Auburn hair styled perfectly, pale skin contrasted by deep red lipstick, wearing a designer dress that Millie recognized as last season's collection. Their eyes met across the driveway, and Millie saw the exact moment Jenna realized the trap she'd walked into. "Hello, Millie," Jenna said. climbing the porch steps with a confidence that was just slightly forced. "I've heard so much about you. I feel like we're already old friends." "Do you?" Millie's voice was flat, giving nothing away. Gavin cleared his throat. "Millie suggested we all have dinner together, to talk like adults." He said it like he believed it, like he hadn't noticed the electric current of tension crackling between the two women. "How mature," Jenna purred, extending her hand. "I'm Jenna." Millie looked at the offered hand for a long moment before taking it. Jenna's skin was cold, her grip too tight. They held the handshake a beat too long, each measuring the other. "Please come in," Millie said, stepping aside. She'd prepared dinner with meticulous care, not because she cared about impressing either of them, but because every detail mattered in this particular performance. The dining room table was set for 3, candles flickering, wine already poured. The aroma of her grandmother's recipe for braised short ribs filled the house. "This is lovely," Jenna said, looking around with eyes that catalogued everything, the artwork on the walls, the expensive rug, the custom furniture. "You have such exquisite taste, Millie. I can see why your design business is so successful." "You've researched me," Millie observed, gesturing for them to sit. "Of course. When you're involved with someone, you want to know about the important people in their life." Jenna reached over and squeezed Gavin's hand. "And you're clearly very important to Gavin, his wife of 8 years. That's quite a history." They sat, the geometry of the table putting Millie at the head with Gavin and Jenna on either side. Millie served the food with practiced grace, playing the perfect hostess while her mind raced through scenarios and contingencies. "So, Jenna," Millie said, taking a sip of her wine, "Gavin mentioned you're from Washington, Seattle area." "That's right, born and raised. And you moved to New York 6 months ago?" "About that, yes." Jenna's smile never wavered, but Millie saw her pupils dilate slightly. "I needed a fresh start. New city, new opportunities." "How brave," Millie said. "What made you choose New York specifically?" Gavin was eating obliviously, relief evident on his face that the evening was going so smoothly. He had no idea he was watching 2 predators circle each other. "I had some unfinished business here," Jenna said, holding Millie's gaze. "Things I needed to resolve from my past." "How interesting. I understand that completely. We all have things from our past we need to confront eventually." Millie cut her meat with precise, controlled movements. "What line of work are you in?" "Financial consulting. I help businesses restructure their operations, identify inefficiencies, maximize profit potential." "Fascinating. And where did you study? What's your background?" Jenna's smile tightened imperceptibly. "I'm largely self-taught. Real-world experience, you know. I find that actual practice is worth more than any degree." Millie let the sound hang in the air. "And how did you and Gavin meet?" "At a conference in Manhattan," Gavin jumped in, eager to contribute. "Jenna was giving a presentation on innovative restructuring strategies. It was brilliant." "I'm sure it was," Millie said. "Do you have a card, Jenna? I might know some businesses that could use your services." "I'm between cards at the moment," Jenna said smoothly, "but I'd love to connect on social media. You're on LinkedIn, I assume." "Of course. What's your company name?" "I'm an independent contractor, Sweeney Consulting Solutions." Millie made a show of pulling out her phone, typing. "That's funny. I'm not finding anything under that name." "It's new. Website is still in development." "Ah." Millie set her phone down. "So you're just starting out. That must be difficult in New York. It's such an expensive city, especially when you're building a business from scratch." She watched Jenna's jaw tighten. Every word was a needle, delicately inserted. "Gavin's been incredibly supportive," Jenna said, placing her hand over his again. "He believes in me, in us, in what we have together." "And what exactly do you have together?" Millie asked, her voice perfectly pleasant. Gavin shifted uncomfortably. "Millie, no, it's a fair question," Jenna interrupted, leaning forward. "We have a connection that transcends the ordinary. We understand each other in ways that go deeper than just physical attraction. We have a spiritual bond. Spiritual, Millie repeated. How lovely. And how long did it take to develop this spiritual bond? 6 months, you said? When you know, Jenna said, her smile sharp now. Sometimes it only takes a moment to recognize your soulmate. Interesting choice of words. Soulmate. Millie stood collecting plates. Dessert, anyone? I made my famous chocolate souffle. As she walked toward the kitchen, she heard Gavin whisper to Jenna, See? She's being really mature about this. Maybe we can all figure out an arrangement. Millie turned. What kind of arrangement did you have in mind, Gavin? He froze, caught. I just meant, maybe we don't have to make any rash decisions. Maybe we can all what? Be friends, be one big happy family. Millie's voice remained calm, but something in it made both of them go still. Is that what you think this dinner is about? You think I invited you here to negotiate a polyamorous relationship? Millie, Gavin started. I invited you here, Millie said, walking back to the table and placing her hands on the back of her chair, because I wanted to look my husband's mistress in the eye. I wanted to see what kind of woman would be worth throwing away 8 years of marriage for. She turned her gaze to Jenna. And now I have. Jenna's mask began to crack, the sweet girlfriend act fading into something colder. And what do you see, Millie? I see a woman with a very specific kind of agenda. You don't know anything about me, don't I? Millie pulled out her phone again, this time opening a saved web page. She turned it so they could both see the screen. It was a news article from a Washington state newspaper dated 3 years ago. The headline read, Seattle woman sentenced to 5 years for investment fraud scheme. Jenna's face went white. That's you, isn't it, Jenna? Or should I say, inmate number 394857 from Washington State Correctional Facility for Women? Gavin's head whipped between them. What? Jenna, what is she talking about? It's a lie, Jenna said, but her voice had lost its confidence. She's making this up because she's jealous. Am I? Millie scrolled down. Because this article describes how Jenna Marie Sweeney, age 37, defrauded multiple victims of over $200,000 through a fake investment consulting scheme. You were released 4 months ago after serving 2 years. Good behavior, I assume? Gavin stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Jenna, tell me this isn't true. It's not. It's complicated. Jenna's composure shattered. I was set up. Someone I trusted betrayed me, used me as a scapegoat. Who? Millie asked softly. Who betrayed you, Jenna? Their eyes locked, and in that moment, Gavin ceased to exist. It was just the two of them, 3 years of unspoken history crackling between them like lightning. You know who, Jenna whispered. Do I? You walked away. You left me with nothing. You destroyed everything, and then you just moved on, like I meant nothing to you. Gavin's voice cut through the tension. Wait, you two know each other? Millie didn't break eye contact with Jenna. We used to. Used to what? Be friends, Jenna said, her voice brittle. Very close friends. Before your wife decided I wasn't good enough for her anymore. That's not what happened, Millie said, and now steel entered her voice. What happened was, I discovered you were using me to gain access to my business accounts. What happened was I found out you'd been lying about everything, your job, your background, your intentions. What happened was I ended a toxic situation before you could destroy me. Destroy you? Jenna laughed, high and sharp. You were the one with all the power, Millie. You were the successful one, the admired one, the one everyone loved. I was just what? A con artist who targeted vulnerable people. Millie finally looked at Gavin. She didn't meet you by accident at that conference. She found you deliberately, because you're married to me. Gavin sank back into his chair. This can't be real. Oh, it's very real, Jenna said, and now all pretense was gone. She looked at Millie with pure hatred. Did you really think I'd just disappear? Did you think 2 years in that place wouldn't give me plenty of time to think about payback? So this is revenge, Millie said. You seduced my husband as revenge for me ending our friendship. Friendship? Jenna laughed again. Is that what you're calling it? We both know it was more than friendship, Millie. We both know what we had. Gavin's voice was barely a whisper. What is she talking about? Millie closed her eyes for just a moment, then opened them. 3 years ago, Gavin and I went through a rough patch. You were working constantly, barely home. I was lonely and angry, and Jenna came into my life at exactly the right moment, or the wrong moment, depending on your perspective. Jesus Christ, Gavin said. You had an affair with her. It wasn't, Millie started, then stopped. Yes, for a few months, until I realized she was manipulating me, using me. I ended it. She disappeared. I never told you because it was over and I was ashamed, and I just wanted to move forward. And I went to prison, Jenna added, leaning back in her chair with a smile that was all teeth. Thanks to information that was conveniently provided to the authorities right after Millie dumped me. Funny timing, don't you think? I didn't. Millie's control finally cracked. I didn't turn you in. You were already under investigation. I had nothing to do with that. Sure you didn't. Jenna turned to Gavin. So now you know the truth about both of us. Your wife had an affair with a woman and never told you. And I'm an ex-con who seduced you specifically to hurt her. What are you going to do about it, Gavin? Who are you going to choose? The woman who lied to you for 3 years, or the woman who's lying to you right now? Gavin stood up, his face pale. I need to leave. I need to think. Gavin! Millie reached for him. He jerked away. Don't. Just don't. I can't even look at either of you right now. He walked out, the front door slamming behind him hard enough to rattle the windows. The sound of his car starting and pulling away echoed in the sudden silence. Millie and Jenna sat across from each other in the candle-lit dining room, the ruins of dinner between them. Congratulations, Jenna finally said. You've destroyed your marriage all by yourself. Didn't need my help after all. Get out of my house, Millie said quietly. Gladly. Jenna stood, smoothing her dress. But Millie, this isn't over. Not even close. I spent 2 years in a cell thinking about you, thinking about how to hurt you the way you hurt me. Taking Gavin was just the beginning. Then bring it, Millie said, rising to face her. Because I'm not the woman I was 3 years ago. Prison made you harder, life made me stronger. You want war? You'll get war. But I promise you this, when it's over, you'll wish you'd stayed in Washington. Jenna smiled, walked to the door, then turned back. Does he know? That you were the one who couldn't handle what we had? That you were the one who ran away when things got real? What I know, Millie said, is that you're a predator who targets vulnerable people. And Gavin is vulnerable right now, but he's not stupid. Eventually, he'll see exactly what you are. By then, it won't matter. I'll have taken everything you care about. Jenna opened the door. Sleep well, Millie. She left, and Millie stood alone in her dining room, candles still burning, wine untouched, the ruins of her carefully planned confrontation scattered around her. She picked up her phone and saw 3 missed calls from Gavin. She didn't call back. Instead, she blew out the candles, poured the wine down the sink, and went upstairs. She told the truth tonight, all of it. And the truth had felt like pulling a knife out of her own chest. Painful, bloody, but necessary. Now Gavin knew everything, and so did Jenna. Let them both make their choices. Let them both live with the consequences. Millie Ortega was done lying, done hiding, done being anything less than the powerful woman she'd fought so hard to become. And if Jenna wanted war, then war it would be. Chapter 4. The Man Who Chose Wrong. Gavin sat in his car in a parking lot somewhere in Manhattan, his hands shaking on the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. His wife had an affair with a woman. With the same woman he'd been sleeping with for the past 6 months. The same woman who'd just admitted she'd targeted him specifically for revenge against Millie. His phone buzzed constantly. Calls from his mother, his sister, Carter. Messages from Jenna begging him to call her, to let her explain. And one text from Millie, sent an hour after he'd left her house. I should have told you 3 years ago. I was ashamed and scared, and I convinced myself that keeping it secret was protecting you. I was wrong. I'm sorry for lying. But I'm not sorry for ending things with her. She was toxic then, and she's toxic now. Choose carefully, Gavin. Me. He read it 17 times. Choose carefully, like it was simple, like his entire world hadn't just imploded. His phone rang. Jenna again. This time he answered. Where are you? My apartment. Baby, please come over, let me explain. Millie was lying about so much. Were you in prison? Silence. Jenna, were you in prison? Yes, she said finally. But it wasn't. I was innocent, Gavin. I was set up by people I trusted. I took the fall for someone else's crimes. And you targeted me because I'm married to Millie. No! I mean, yes, I knew who you were when we met, but that's not why I... Gavin, what we have is real. My feelings for you are real. It started as one thing, but it became something else. You have to believe me. I don't know what to believe anymore. Then come over. Let me show you. Let me prove to you that this is real. Gavin closed his eyes. He was exhausted, betrayed from both sides, angry at everyone, including himself. But the thought of going home, to what? An empty house? His boxes at the office? He had nowhere else to go. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and drove through streets he no longer recognized, in a life he no longer understood. When he arrived at Jenna's building, she was waiting in the doorway, eyes red from crying, wearing one of his shirts. She threw her arms around him the moment he got close enough. I'm so sorry, she whispered into his neck. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about my past. I was afraid you'd judge me, that you'd walk away before you got to know the real me. Gavin let her hold him, too tired to resist. They went upstairs to her modest apartment, and he looked around with new eyes. Everything here was cheap, borrowed, temporary. No roots, no permanence. Tell me the truth, he said, sitting on her couch. All of it, from the beginning. Jenna sat beside him, took his hands. I met Millie 3 years ago at a networking event. I was struggling, trying to build a consulting business, and she was everything I wanted to be. Successful, confident, admired. We became friends, close friends, and then more than friends. You had an affair with my wife. She was lonely, Gavin. You were never home. She told me that. She felt abandoned by you, neglected, like you didn't see her anymore. And I was there. I listened to her. I made her feel valued. The words hit like punches. So it's my fault? No, I'm just trying to explain what happened. We were together for a few months. It was intense and complicated and confusing for both of us. But then she ended it. Coldly. Completely. Like I meant nothing. She cut me out of her life without a second thought. And the fraud charges? Jenna's face hardened. I was working with some business partners who turned out to be running scams. When everything fell apart, they blamed me. Made it look like I was the mastermind. I went to prison for crimes I didn't commit. But you were convicted. Because I couldn't afford a good lawyer. Because I had no one to speak for me. Do you know what it's like to spend 2 years in a cage for something you didn't do? Gavin rubbed his face. Why did you come to New York? Why target me? I didn't plan it, Jenna said, but her eyes didn't quite meet his. I got paroled here because I needed a fresh start away from Seattle. When I saw you at that conference and realized who you were, I was curious. I wanted to understand what kind of man Millie had married, what kind of man she'd chosen over me. So you seduced me. I talked to you. We connected. Everything that happened between us was real, Gavin. My feelings are real. Yes, maybe I knew who you were at first, but that's not why I fell for you. You're kind and funny, and you made me feel like I mattered again. You gave me hope. She moved closer, her hand on his chest. She's trying to turn you against me. Can't you see that? She's manipulating you the same way she manipulated me. Millie Ortega always gets what she wants, and she destroys anyone who threatens that." "She seemed pretty hurt tonight," Gavin said quietly. "She's an actress, a performer. She's playing the victim now. But 3 years ago, she was cold as ice when she threw me away. No second chances, no compassion, just done with me, like I was garbage." Gavin wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to believe that someone in this mess was actually innocent, actually cared about him for real reasons. He pulled Jenna close and kissed her, trying to lose himself in something that felt simple. But as she led him to the bedroom, his phone buzzed one more time, a text from his mother. "Whatever you decide, make sure it's based on truth, not convenience. Love you, son, but make the right choice." The right choice. As if he had any idea what that was anymore. 3 days later, Gavin made his decision. He chose Jenna. Not because he didn't love Millie. He did, in some deep, complicated way that hurt to acknowledge. But because going back to Millie meant facing his own failures every single day. It meant admitting he'd thrown away something precious for a fantasy. It meant looking at her and seeing his own weakness reflected back. With Jenna, he could be the hero. The man who saved the misunderstood ex-con, who believed in her when no one else did. The man who chose passion over practicality. He called Millie on a Tuesday afternoon. She answered on the third ring. "I'm choosing Jenna," he said without preamble. Silence stretched between them for so long he thought she might have hung up. "Okay," she said finally. "That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Gavin? Do you want me to beg? To tell you you're making a mistake? You've made your choice. I have to respect it, even if I think you're being a fool. You lied to me for 3 years. I did, and I apologize for that. But you know what I didn't do? I didn't send you a cruel text on Christmas Eve designed to humiliate you in front of your colleagues. I didn't abandon you at a public event. I didn't choose someone else and then have the audacity to ask you to share me." She paused, and he could hear her breathing, controlled and steady. "You want to be with Jenna? Fine. Be with her. But Gavin, listen to me very carefully. When she shows you who she really is, and she will, don't come crying back to me. Don't expect me to fix you or save you or pick up the pieces of what you broke. You're making this choice with full information. Live with it. Millie, my lawyer will contact you tomorrow. Divide everything 50-50. The house is mine. You can have your equity. Try to be fair about this. That's all I'm asking." "Wait. Can we—" The line went dead. Gavin stood in his office, phone in hand, and felt something crack in his chest. But he'd made his choice. He had to follow through. That evening, Millie threw a party. She called it a liberation celebration, sent invitations to everyone they knew, transformed her home into a glittering showcase of freedom and new beginnings. Champagne flowed, music filled every room, and Millie wore a red dress that made her look like a goddess. By midnight, social media was flooded with photos. Millie laughing with friends, Millie dancing in her living room, Millie surrounded by people who loved her, including Gavin's mother, his sister Emma, and his best friend Carter. Gavin saw the photos on his phone while lying in Jenna's bed. In every picture, Millie looked radiant, victorious, free. Like leaving him had been the best thing that ever happened to her. "Stop looking at those," Jenna said, snatching his phone. "She's just trying to make you jealous. It's pathetic, really." But it didn't look pathetic. It looked like Millie was genuinely happy. And Gavin, lying next to the woman he'd chosen over his wife, felt more alone than he'd ever felt in his life. Over the next week, reality set in hard. Jenna was expensive. She needed money for rent, for food, for clothes, appropriate for job interviews. She maxed out the credit card he'd given her within days, $10,000 on clothes, dinners, spa treatments. When he confronted her, she cried, "I just wanted to look good for you. I wanted to fit into your world. I'm sorry, baby. I'll do better." And she did for a few days. Then there were more expenses, more crises, more urgent needs that only his money could solve. Meanwhile, his phone was eerily quiet. His mother hadn't called since he'd made his decision. Emma had sent one text, "Hope she's worth it." Carter had stopped responding to messages entirely. The only person still talking to him was Jenna, and increasingly he wasn't sure he liked what she was saying. "We should move in together properly," she suggested one night. "You should give up your apartment, save money, just live here with me. This place is barely big enough for you. So let's get a bigger place, together, a fresh start for both of us." "I can't afford that right now. The divorce is going to be expensive." Her face darkened. "You're still thinking about her, about going back to her." "I'm not." "You are?" "I can tell. Every time I mention our future, you hesitate. Every time I ask for commitment, you pull away. Am I just a placeholder until you and Millie work things out?" "Jenna, that's not fair." "Nothing about this is fair. I gave up everything to be with you. I put my heart on the line, and you're treating me like I'm temporary." These fights became more frequent. Jenna's mood swung wildly, passionate and loving one moment, cold and accusatory the next. She started showing up at his office unexpectedly, checking his phone when she thought he wasn't looking, demanding to know where he was every moment they weren't together. 1 month after he'd chosen her, Gavin realized he'd made a catastrophic mistake. But by then, it was too late. He'd burned every bridge, alienated everyone who cared about him, and tied himself to a woman who was slowly revealing herself to be exactly what Millie had warned him about. Toxic, manipulative, dangerous. And Millie, she was thriving without him. Her business was booming. She looked happier in every photo he saw online. She'd moved on completely, as if their 8 years together had been erased as easily as deleting a text message. Gavin lay awake at night in Jenna's tiny apartment, listening to her restless sleep, and wondered how his life had gone so wrong so fast. He'd had everything: a beautiful wife, a comfortable home, respect, love, a future. And he'd traded it all for a woman who was slowly draining him dry in every possible way. The only question now was, how much more would he lose before he finally admitted the truth to himself? Chapter 5. The Woman Who Knew Too Much. Millie stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her design studio, watching snow fall over Manhattan, when her assistant knocked softly on the doorframe. "Someone's here to see you. Says it's urgent. He won't give his name." Millie turned, curious. "Send him in." The man who entered was middle-aged, wearing an expensive suit that looked slightly rumpled, carrying a manila envelope. He had the careful demeanor of someone who dealt in information. "Ms. Ortega, my name is Richard Castellano. I'm a private investigator." Millie's eyebrows rose. "I didn't hire a private investigator." "No, but someone who cares about you did." He set the envelope on her desk. "I was asked to look into Jenna Sweeney's background. The person who hired me wants to remain anonymous, but they thought you should have this information." "Who hired you?" "I can't say. But they were very clear that you need to know exactly who you're dealing with." He tapped the envelope. "Read it, all of it, and then decide what you want to do with the information." He left before Millie could ask more questions. She opened the envelope and spent the next hour reading through documents that painted a picture of Jenna Sweeney that was far darker than she'd imagined. Prison records, yes, but also detailed reports of her pattern before incarceration, women she'd befriended, seduced, and robbed, men she'd targeted and bled dry financially, a trail of destruction stretching back over a decade. And more recently, evidence that Jenna was violating her parole. She'd given the authorities a fake address. She'd failed multiple check-ins with her parole officer. She was using a false identity on some financial documents. The most damning piece was at the bottom, bank records showing that in the past month, Jenna had drained nearly $40,000 from Gavin through various means: credit cards, cash withdrawals, loans that would never be repaid. Millie's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Now you know. The question is, will you save him?" A friend. She stared at the message for a long moment, then made a decision. That evening, Millie drove to Gavin's office building. She knew he'd be working late. It was one of his patterns she'd learned over 8 years. Sure enough, she saw lights on in his window. She sat in her car for 20 minutes, gathering courage. Then she picked up the manila envelope and walked inside. The security guard recognized her. "Mrs. Bailey, good to see you. Mr. Bailey's on the 15th floor." She rode the elevator in silence, her heart pounding. When she reached his office, she found him hunched over his desk, looking older and more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. He looked up when she knocked, shock crossing his face. "Millie, we need to talk." "I don't think—" "Gavin, please, just hear me out. 5 minutes." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. She sat, placed the envelope between them. "What's that?" "The truth about Jenna. The whole truth, not just the pieces she's told you." His jaw tightened. "I don't need you interfering in my relationship. She's stolen $40,000 from you in the past month." That got his attention. "What?" Millie opened the envelope, spread out the bank records. "Someone had her investigated. I don't know who. They wanted to stay anonymous. But look at this, Gavin. Really look." He leaned forward, scanning the documents. She watched his face change as he processed the information. Denial, then confusion, then dawning horror. This can't be right. These credit card charges, I knew about some of them, but not all of this. And these cash withdrawals, she's been doing it gradually. Small amounts that you wouldn't notice individually, but they add up to a fortune. I gave her access to one card for emergencies. Read the next page." He flipped through, finding the criminal history report, detailed accounts of her previous victims, patterns that matched exactly what she was doing to him now. "She's violated her parole multiple times," Millie continued, her voice gentle but firm. "Fake addresses, missed check-ins, identity fraud. She could go back to prison for this." Gavin sat back, his face ashen. "Why are you showing me this? You must be thrilled. You get to be right." "I'm not thrilled, Gavin. I'm worried. Despite everything, I don't want to see you destroyed by her." "Why? I chose her over you. I humiliated you. His voice cracked. "I threw away everything we had." "Yes, you did." Millie's voice was steady. "And I'm still angry about that. I'm still hurt. But Gavin, she's dangerous, not just to your bank account, to you. She's escalating. This pattern, it always ends badly for the victim." He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. "You're trying to protect me." "I'm trying to give you information so you can make an informed choice. What you do with it is up to you." She stood. "But if you confront her, be smart about it. People like Jenna don't react well when they're cornered." "Millie, I'm not asking you to come back to me. That ship has sailed. I'm asking you to save yourself before it's too late." She walked to the door, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I did love you. Parts of me still do. That's why I'm here." Then she left him sitting alone with the evidence of his mistake spread across his desk. 2 days later, everything exploded. Gavin confronted Jenna with the bank records. She tried lying first, then crying, then seduction. When none of that worked, her mask finally came off completely. "You want to know why I took your money?" she screamed, throwing things around her apartment. "Because you owe me. Your perfect wife destroyed my life and you're married to her, so you're guilty by association." "That's insane." "Is it? She ended things with me and I lost everything. My business, my reputation, my freedom. I spent 2 years in a cage because of her. So yes, I targeted you. Yes, I seduced you specifically to hurt her. And taking your money, that was just a bonus." Gavin felt sick. "You never cared about me at all." "Oh, I cared about the credit cards and the stupid hope in your eyes every time I told you I loved you." She laughed, harsh and bitter. "You were so easy, Gavin. So desperate to believe someone found you special. Your wife outgrew you years ago and you couldn't handle it, so you ran to the first woman who made you feel important. You're psychotic." "Maybe. But you know what? I wanted to hurt her and I did. I took her husband, humiliated her publicly, made her face her past. That was worth everything. She tried to warn me. She gave me evidence and asked me to be careful." Jenna's face twisted. "Of course she did. Saint Millie, always so noble. Did she tell you how she threw me away like garbage? How she was done with me the second I was no longer convenient? She said you were manipulating her, using her." "I loved her!" The words burst out of Jenna like something long suppressed. I actually loved her and she didn't care. She was just experimenting, just exploring, just amusing herself with the broken girl from Seattle. When she was done, she moved on without a second thought. For the first time, Gavin saw past the con artist to something more complicated underneath. A person who'd been genuinely hurt and had turned that pain into a weapon. "You need help, Jenna, professional help." "What I need," she said, her voice going cold and calm, "is for both of you to suffer the way I suffered, and I'm not done yet." "Yes, you are." Gavin pulled out his phone. "I've already called your parole officer. They're sending someone to pick you up. You're going back to Washington." Jenna's eyes went wide. "You didn't. The fake address, the financial fraud, all of it. You violated your parole in multiple ways. You're done." She lunged at him, nails out, screaming obscenities. Gavin grabbed her wrists, held her away from him. She fought like a wild animal, spitting and cursing, promising revenge, threatening both him and Millie. When the parole enforcement officers arrived, she was still screaming. They took her away in handcuffs, and Gavin stood in the destroyed apartment, surrounded by broken glass and overturned furniture, and finally allowed himself to acknowledge the truth. He'd been played, manipulated, used, and Millie had tried to save him anyway. That night, he sent her a text. "You were right about everything. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I finally see clearly." Her response came an hour later. "I know. Take care of yourself, Gavin." Nothing more. No invitation to reconcile, no absolution, just those 6 words. Gavin sat alone in his empty apartment, filed the police reports, cancelled the credit cards, and began the long process of calculating exactly how much his mistake had cost him. The financial damage was enormous. But the emotional damage, the relationships he'd destroyed, the trust he'd shattered, the life he'd thrown away, that was incalculable. He'd lost everything that mattered, chasing a fantasy that turned out to be a nightmare. And the only person who'd tried to save him was the woman he'd betrayed. Chapter 6. The unraveling spring arrived in New York with a vengeance, washing away the last traces of winter in torrential rains that seemed to match the storm still raging in Gavin's life. 2 months had passed since Jenna's arrest and deportation back to Washington. 2 months of picking up the pieces, trying to understand how his life had gone so catastrophically wrong. He'd become a cautionary tale. The man who threw away his marriage for a con artist. The fool who couldn't see what everyone else saw clearly. His mother spoke to him again, but with a disappointment that cut deeper than anger ever could. Emma had forgiven him, but made it clear that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. Carter had finally responded to his messages with a single text. "Dude, you really screwed up. Let's get coffee sometime and talk about how you fix this." But the person he most wanted to talk to remained unreachable. Millie had moved on completely. Her Instagram, which he still checked daily, despite knowing it was unhealthy, showed a woman thriving in ways she never had during their marriage. She'd landed a contract to design a boutique hotel in Brooklyn. She'd been photographed at charity galas, art gallery openings, business conferences. In every picture, she glowed with confidence and success. She'd also, according to Emma, who heard it from someone who knew someone, started dating. Nothing serious, but she was putting herself back out there, moving forward while Gavin remained stuck in the wreckage of his choices. He'd tried calling a few times. The calls went straight to voicemail, and he never left a message because what could he possibly say? He'd written letters he never sent, drafted texts he deleted before hitting send. He'd driven by their old house, her house now, and sat outside like some kind of stalker, just looking at the lights in the windows, imagining her life without him. The divorce had been finalized with stunning efficiency. Millie had been generous in the settlement, which somehow made it worse. She hadn't tried to punish him financially, hadn't fought over possessions, hadn't made it difficult. She'd just let him go, like releasing something that no longer served any purpose. The financial damage from Jenna was still being calculated, but it was approaching $70,000 when all the hidden charges and forged checks were accounted for. He'd filed charges, but recovering the money was unlikely. The prosecutor had told him frankly that Jenna would likely serve additional prison time, but his money was gone. "Expensive lesson," Carter had said over that coffee, trying to be supportive. "Lessons are supposed to make you better," Gavin had replied. "This just made me broke and alone." On a rainy Thursday evening in April, Gavin worked late at the office, not because he had to, but because going home to his sterile one-bedroom apartment was depressing. He'd lost the nice place downtown, had to downsize to something affordable while he rebuilt his finances. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "She's at Rossetti's on 5th. The coffee shop with the blue awning. Thought you might want to know." A friend. The same friend who'd sent that private investigator to Millie with information about Jenna. Whoever it was, they were still interfering, still playing puppet master. But Gavin didn't care. The thought of seeing Millie, even from a distance, was too tempting to resist. He grabbed his jacket and left. Rossetti's was a small Italian cafe that Millie had always loved, tucked between two larger buildings like a secret. Through the rain-streaked window, Gavin could see her sitting at a corner table, laptop open, completely absorbed in her work. Her hair was different, shorter, styled in a way that framed her face beautifully. She wore a soft grey sweater that he didn't recognize. Everything about her seemed familiar and completely foreign at the same time. He should leave. Walking in there would accomplish nothing except making her uncomfortable. But his feet carried him through the door before his brain could intervene. The bell above the door chimed. Millie looked up reflexively and their eyes met. For a moment, neither moved. Then Millie's expression shifted from surprise to something more guarded. She closed her laptop slowly, deliberately. Gavin walked over, his heart pounding. "Hi." "Hello, Gavin. I know you probably don't want to see me. I was just... Someone texted me that you were here and I..." He stopped, realizing how that sounded. "I'm not stalking you, I swear. I was working late and got this random text and I just wanted to see how you were doing." She studied him for a long moment. "Sit down. You're making everyone nervous hovering like that." He sat across from her, acutely aware of the fact that this was the closest they'd been since that terrible dinner when everything had exploded. She looked good, better than good. She looked like herself again, confident, composed, at ease in her own skin. "You look well," he said. "I am well." She signaled the waiter. "Coffee?" "Sure, thanks." They sat in awkward silence while the waiter brought his coffee. Gavin added cream with shaking hands. "How have you been?" Millie asked, her tone neutral. "Honestly, pretty terrible. I've been living in a shoebox, working double shifts to pay off Jenna's damage, and generally hating myself for being such an idiot." "I'm sorry the financial situation is difficult." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Be so damn gracious. You're allowed to tell me I got what I deserved." Millie took a sip of her tea. "Would that make you feel better? If I told you that I was glad you were suffering?" "Maybe. At least it would feel real." "Fine. Yes, part of me is glad that you're experiencing consequences for your choices. Part of me thinks you deserve every bit of discomfort you're feeling." "Happy?" "Not really." She almost smiled. "Gavin, what are you doing here? What do you want from me?" "I don't know," he admitted. "To apologize again, maybe. To tell you that you were right about everything. To see if there's any possible way." "No." The word was gentle, but final. "You don't even know what I was going to ask." "Yes, I do. And the answer is no. We're not getting back together. We're not trying again. That part of our lives is over." "Because you hate me." "Because I don't," Millie said, and something in her voice made him look up. "That's the problem, Gavin. I don't hate you. I wish I did, it would be so much easier. But I don't. I'm not in love with you anymore, and I don't think I can find my way back to that place." The words hit him like a physical blow. He'd been hoping, somewhere deep down, that time and distance and his suffering would somehow magically fix what he'd broken. But looking at her now, he understood the truth. She'd moved on. Really, truly moved on in a way he hadn't. "When did you stop?" he asked quietly. When did you stop loving me? Millie considered the question, her expression thoughtful. I don't think it was one moment. I think it was 1,000 small moments. Every time you chose work over me. Every time you didn't notice when I needed you. Every time you made me feel like I was less important than whatever else was demanding your attention. That's not fair. I was working hard to build our future. No, you were working hard to avoid building our present. And I let you because I was doing the same thing. We were married, Gavin, but we weren't partners. We were roommates who occasionally had sex and split the bills. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. The affair with Jenna, it wasn't about her being a woman or about the sex or any of that. It was about feeling seen by someone, feeling like I mattered to someone. You stopped seeing me years before I stopped seeing you, but I didn't have the courage to admit our marriage was already over until she forced the issue. So it's my fault you cheated? No. That was my choice and my mistake. I'm not blaming you for my actions. I'm explaining the context. We were already broken, Gavin. Jenna didn't break us. She just exposed the cracks that were already there. And then I made everything worse by choosing her. You made it final, Millie corrected. You took something that might have been repairable and you demolished it completely. And you did it in the cruelest possible way with that text on Christmas Eve. That wasn't just ending our marriage. That was trying to destroy me. I know. His voice was barely a whisper. I know, and I'm sorry. I was angry and hurt, and I wanted you to hurt too. I wanted you to feel what I was feeling when I found out about you and her. Well, you succeeded. Congratulations. They sat in silence for a while, the cafe bustling around them. Gavin watched her face, trying to memorize it, knowing this might be the last real conversation they ever had. For what it's worth, he said finally, losing you was the worst mistake of my life. Jenna destroyed my bank account, but you were my home, and I threw that away for something shiny and new and completely hollow. I know you're sorry. I believe that. Millie's voice was softer now. But sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you chose someone else when I needed you to choose me. Sorry doesn't erase the humiliation or the pain or the way you made me question my worth. So that's it? We just move on with our lives like 8 years meant nothing? 8 years meant everything. They gave me some of the best moments of my life. They also taught me who I am and what I deserve. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand briefly. I don't regret our marriage, Gavin, but I don't want to resurrect it either. I'm finally happy, really genuinely happy, and I need to protect that. He felt tears burning behind his eyes. I don't know how to be okay without you. You'll figure it out. You're stronger than you think. She stood, gathering her things. Take care of yourself. Pay off the debt, go to therapy, rebuild your life, and next time, because there will be a next time with someone else, be present, be honest, be the man you should have been with me. Millie. Goodbye, Gavin. She walked out into the rain, leaving him sitting alone with his cold coffee and the ruins of his hopes. The anonymous friend texted again. Did it help? Gavin stared at the message for a long time before replying, Who are you? Someone who wants you both to find peace. You needed to see that she's moved on. Now you can too. I don't want to move on. You don't have a choice. But here's the thing, neither does she. She's trying, but she's not as okay as she seems. Give her space, give her time, and work on becoming someone worth a second chance. Maybe someday when you're both different people, there might be something to rebuild. But not now, not like this. Are you a therapist or something? Just a friend, to both of you. The conversation ended there. Gavin sat in Rossetti's until they started stacking chairs, then walked home through the rain, letting it soak him through. By the time he reached his apartment, he'd made a decision. He was done chasing, done hoping, done living in the past. Tomorrow, he'd start fresh. He'd sign up for therapy like he'd been avoiding. He'd join a gym, call his friends, reconnect with his family. He'd become the man he should have been all along, not for Millie, for himself. And if someday, somehow, fate gave them another chance, then he'd be ready, he'd be worthy. But for now, he had to let her go, even if it broke him to do it. Chapter 7. Rock Bottom. 3 months crawled by like wounded animals. Gavin kept his promise to himself. Therapy twice a week, gym 5 days a week, regular dinners with his mother and Emma. He threw himself into work with the kind of focus he'd lacked for years, earning back respect he'd lost and promotions he'd stopped pursuing. On the surface, he was rebuilding. Underneath, he was hollow. The debt from Jenna was finally manageable, payment plans established, criminal restitution ordered, but unlikely to ever materialize. His apartment remained Spartan. He'd sold most of his possessions to cover expenses, keeping only the essentials. The minimalism was supposed to be cleansing. Instead, it felt like living in a waiting room for a life that hadn't started yet. His therapist, Dr. Chen, pushed him constantly to engage with his emotions rather than just manage them. "You're performing recovery," she told him in their session one Tuesday in July. "You're doing all the right actions without feeling any of it. That's not healing, Gavin. That's just a different kind of avoidance." "What am I avoiding?" "Grief. Real, messy, ugly grief over what you lost. You're treating your broken marriage like a business failure, analyzing what went wrong, making corrective action plans, focusing on metrics of improvement, but you haven't actually mourned. I think about Millie every day. Thinking isn't feeling. When's the last time you cried?" He couldn't remember. That night, scrolling through social media in his sparse living room, Gavin saw the post that finally cracked him open. Millie at some kind of charity gala, wearing a midnight blue dress that made her look like royalty, laughing at something someone just off-camera had said. She was radiant, alive, glowing with the kind of joy he rarely saw during their marriage. The caption read, "Celebrating the opening of the Riverside Boutique Hotel, my biggest project yet. Grateful for everyone who believed in my vision." Hundreds of comments congratulated her. Among them, one that made his stomach drop. "Beautiful work from a beautiful woman. Dinner next week to celebrate? M. Marcus, the CEO from the Christmas party, the one who'd looked at Millie with obvious admiration even back then. Gavin told himself he had no right to feel jealous. He'd given up that right when he chose Jenna, but knowing he had no right didn't stop the emotion from flooding through him. Jealousy, yes, but also something deeper. Regret, loss, the dawning realization that Millie wasn't just moving on, she was soaring without him. He sat on his couch in the dark and finally let himself cry. Not neat, controlled tears, but ugly, gut-wrenching sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than his chest. He cried for his marriage, for his mistakes, for the man he'd been and the man he'd failed to become. He cried until his throat hurt and his eyes swelled, and he had nothing left inside him but empty ache. When it was over, he felt scraped raw, but also somehow more present than he'd been in months. The next morning, Saturday, Gavin woke to his phone buzzing. His mother. "There's a street fair in Brooklyn today. That neighborhood Millie loves. Emma and I are going. You should come." "Mom, you need to get out of that depressing apartment. Come or don't. But we're leaving in an hour." She hung up before he could argue. An hour later, he found himself in Brooklyn, wandering through a street fair with his mother and sister, eating overpriced funnel cake and pretending to care about handmade jewelry at various booths. It felt good to be out, surrounded by people and noise and life happening all around him. "You're looking better," Emma said, linking her arm through his. "Healthier." "I'm trying." "I know you are." She squeezed his arm. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. You screwed up spectacularly, but you're not wallowing. That counts for something. Doesn't change anything. Maybe not with Millie, but it changes things with you, and that matters too." They turned a corner, and Gavin's heart stopped. There, at a coffee booth maybe 20 feet away, stood Millie. She wore simple jeans and a white t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup, completely casual. She looked more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. She wasn't alone. Marcus stood beside her, saying something that made her laugh, his hand resting casually on the small of her back. Gavin froze. His mother and Emma followed his gaze. "Oh," Emma said softly. "Do you want to leave?" He should. Seeing her like this, happy with someone else, moving forward while he remained stuck, it was like swallowing glass. But he couldn't make himself walk away. As if sensing his stare, Millie looked up. Their eyes met across the crowded street. He saw recognition flash across her face, then something more complicated. Not quite discomfort, but not happiness either. She said something to Marcus, then walked toward Gavin. His mother and Emma tactfully moved away, pretending to be interested in a nearby booth. "Hi," Millie said when she reached him. "Hi." He sounded breathless, ridiculous. "I didn't know you'd be here." "I live 3 blocks away. I'm here every weekend." A pause. "You look different. Good different." "I've been working out, trying to get my life together." He shoved his hands in his pockets to keep from reaching for her. "You look incredible, as always." "Thank you." She glanced back at Marcus, who was pretending not to watch them. "Are you here with your family?" "Yeah, Mum's idea. Get me out of my apartment." "That's good. You shouldn't be alone all the time." The conversation was painfully polite, surface level, the kind of exchange you'd have with an acquaintance, not someone you'd shared 8 years of your life with. "Is that Marcus?" Gavin asked, nodding toward the coffee booth. "Yes. We're taking things slow. It's not serious. You don't owe me explanations." "I know, but I also don't want you to hear about it from someone else or see it on social media and feel blindsided." "That's considerate. Thank you." They stood in awkward silence, the street fair bustling around them, neither knowing what to say next. Finally, Millie spoke. "You really do look better, Gavin. Healthier. More like yourself." "I'm trying to be. The therapy helps. Turns out I had a lot of things to work through that had nothing to do with you or our marriage." "I'm glad you're doing that work." She touched his arm briefly, the contact electric. "I mean it. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself." "Millie." He stopped, unsure what he wanted to say. "Don't." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Please don't say whatever you're about to say. We've said everything we need to say. Now we both just need to live our lives." "Right, of course." He forced a smile. "Have a good time at the fair." "You too." She walked back to Marcus, who pulled her close in a way that was clearly affectionate. They collected their coffees and disappeared into the crowd. Gavin stood rooted to the spot, watching the space where she'd been. "You okay?" Emma appeared at his elbow. "No, but I will be." "Want to leave?" "Yeah, let's go." They collected their mother and headed back toward the subway. Gavin looked back once, scanning the crowd for another glimpse of Millie, but she was gone. That night, alone in his apartment, Gavin finally admitted a truth he'd been avoiding. Millie was gone. Really, truly gone. She was building a new life with new people and new possibilities, and he wasn't part of that equation. He'd spent months hoping that if he just improved enough, if he became the man he should have been, somehow they'd find their way back to each other. But seeing her today with Marcus, seeing her genuine happiness, he understood that wasn't going to happen. She'd moved on, and he needed to accept it. He pulled out his laptop and started writing. Not to Millie. He'd promised himself no more letters begging for second chances. Instead, he wrote to himself. Everything he felt, everything he regretted, everything he'd learned. He wrote until his fingers ached, and the sun started rising outside his window. When he was done, he saved the document and titled it, "The Man I Was." Then he opened a new document and titled it, "The Man I'll Become." This time he wrote about the future, about the kind of person he wanted to be, the kind of relationships he wanted to build, the kind of life he wanted to create, a life that didn't revolve around winning back his ex-wife or undoing his past mistakes, but actually moving forward. It was the hardest thing he'd ever written. But when he finished, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Peace. Just a sliver of it, but real. He was at rock bottom. He'd lost everything that mattered. But maybe, just maybe, that meant the only direction left was up. Chapter 8. The Collision. August arrived with oppressive heat that made New York feel like it was melting. Gavin worked longer hours to avoid his sweltering apartment and continued his therapy with grim determination. Dr. Chen had moved him into what she called acceptance work, actively grieving what he'd lost while building something new. "You're still holding on to the fantasy that you can fix this," she told him during a session in mid-August. "You're treating your divorce like a problem to solve rather than a reality to accept. I don't know how to accept it. You start by forgiving yourself, not for what you did to Millie. That's not your forgiveness to grant. For what you did to yourself, for being human and fallible and catastrophically wrong." On a Thursday evening, exhausted from work and therapy, Gavin stopped at a coffee shop near his office. He needed caffeine and a moment of peace before heading home to his oven of an apartment. The rain started as he was paying, sudden, torrential, sending everyone scurrying for cover. Gavin grabbed his coffee and headed for the door. He collided with someone coming in. Coffee sloshing, mutual apologies. Then they both looked up. Millie. She was soaked, clothes plastered to her, mascara slightly smudged. She'd clearly been caught in the storm. For a moment, they just stared at each other. "I'm so sorry," she said finally. "I wasn't looking where I was going." "No, it was my fault." He held the door open. "Do you want to come in? Wait out the rain?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, thanks." They found a corner table, both dripping. The barista brought towels without being asked. "You look like a drowned rat," Gavin said, then immediately regretted it. "Sorry, that came out wrong." "You look like a drowned rat too." She was trying not to smile. They sat in awkward silence. The coffee shop was crowded with other refugees from the rain. "How have you been?" Millie asked finally. "I saw you at the street fair last month with Marcus." "I know, we saw you too." "You looked happy." "I was. I am." She paused. "How are you, really?" The question opened something in him. Maybe it was exhaustion or therapy, or just the surreal nature of being trapped with his ex-wife during a thunderstorm. He found himself telling the truth. "I'm not good, Millie. I'm trying to be. I'm doing everything right. Therapy, exercise, rebuilding my career. But I'm not good. I wake up every day thinking about how badly I destroyed us. Then I spend the rest of the day trying not to think about it." She was quiet. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I did this to myself. To both of us. That doesn't mean I don't feel for you. Despite everything, I don't want you to suffer." "Why not? I deserve it." "Maybe. But I'm tired of being angry, tired of carrying this weight." She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "Can I tell you something? I'm not as okay as I look on Instagram. The hotel project is amazing, my business is thriving, I've been dating Marcus, but there's this hole, this absence where our marriage used to be. 8 years doesn't just disappear." Gavin felt something crack in his chest. "I thought you moved on completely." "I'm good at performing togetherness. You know that about me. I was performing it through most of our marriage, pretending everything was fine when really we were both drowning in separate rooms. I should have noticed. We both should have done things differently. That's what I've learned through therapy. It wasn't just you failing me or me failing you. We failed each other. We stopped being partners and started being strangers who shared a bedroom." They fell into silence, but this time it was different. Less awkward, more contemplative. The rain hammered against the windows. "I miss you," Gavin said quietly. "Not just the marriage. I miss you, talking to you, the way you understood me without me having to explain everything." "I miss you too," Millie admitted. "But Gavin, missing each other isn't enough. It doesn't fix what's broken." "I know, I'm not asking." He struggled for words. "I just wanted you to know that you mattered, that what we had mattered. It mattered to me too." She reached across the table and took his hand. The contact sent electricity through him. What you did on Christmas Eve hurt more than anything in my life. But I'm starting to understand that you were hurting too. That doesn't excuse it, but it helps me make sense of it. I wanted you to hurt the way I was hurting when I found out about Jenna. That was cruel and unforgivable, but human. She squeezed his hand once, then let go. We were both cruel, both petty, both hurt. Marriage is supposed to be the place where you're safe to be those things without destroying each other, but we never learned how to fight fair. My therapist says the same thing. Smart therapist. She paused. Mine says I need to forgive myself for being weak, that I'm stuck because I can't accept being that destructive. How do you forgive yourself for throwing away the best thing in your life? You start by accepting that you're human, that you made terrible mistakes, but that doesn't make you irredeemable. She leaned forward. I spent months being angry at you, Gavin. I'm tired. I don't want to be angry anymore. So I'm choosing to let it go. Not for you, for me, because carrying that anger is exhausting. Does that mean? It doesn't mean we get back together. It means I'm releasing my grip on the anger. I'm choosing to remember the good parts along with the bad. To see you as a whole person who made catastrophic choices, not just a villain. Gavin felt tears burning. Thank you for that grace. I don't deserve it. We all deserve grace, Gavin, even when we don't think we do. The rain was lightening. Around them, people began gathering their things. What are you doing with Marcus? Gavin asked, then regretted it. Sorry, none of my business. It's okay, we're dating. It's casual. He's nice, stable, interested in building something real. Do you love him? Not yet, maybe not ever. I'm not sure I'm capable of that kind of love anymore. Something broke inside me. I can be happy, but that deep, trusting, vulnerable kind of love, I don't know if I can get there again. I ruined that for you. We ruined it together. Stop taking all the blame. It's just another way of avoiding the complicated truth that we were both at fault. She stood. I should go. Marcus is probably wondering where I am. Yeah, of course. Gavin stood too. Millie? Yeah. I'm glad we ran into each other. Literally. She smiled. A real smile. Me too. It was good to talk. Really talk, without all the hurt and anger in the way. Maybe we could do it again sometime? Coffee, as friends? She hesitated. Maybe. Someday. When we're both further along. But not yet, Gavin. It's still too raw. I understand. She walked to the door, then turned back. For what it's worth. I hope you find happiness. Real happiness with someone who deserves you at your best, because despite everything you do have a best. I saw it, I loved it, it's still in there. Then she was gone. Gavin sat back down, his coffee cold, and felt something shift inside him. Not healing, that was far off. But maybe the beginning of healing, the first step toward accepting that what they'd had was over, but that didn't mean it was worthless. They'd loved each other once. That had been real. He texted Dr. Chen. I think I had a breakthrough. Can we schedule an extra session? Her response came quickly. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Proud of you. Gavin left and walked home in the drizzle, feeling lighter than he had in months. Rock bottom wasn't the end. It was just where you stopped falling and started climbing back up. Chapter 9. The Woman Who Chose Herself. September brought cool relief, and with it, a clarity Millie hadn't felt in over a year. She stood in her newly redesigned home office and looked at her calendar with satisfaction. The Riverside Hotel had opened to rave reviews. 3 new major contracts had come in. Her business was thriving beyond anything she'd imagined. On paper, she had everything. Success, independence, respect, financial security. Her social calendar was full. Marcus had become a steady presence in her life. So why did she feel so empty? The coffee shop collision with Gavin had haunted her for weeks. Seeing him so raw, so genuinely broken, had cracked something inside her that she'd worked hard to seal shut. She still thought about him constantly, not about their marriage as it had been, that was dead, but about him, the man underneath all the mistakes. "You're a million miles away," Marcus said from the doorway, holding 2 glasses of wine. It was Friday evening, their usual dinner night. Millie accepted the glass with a smile. "Sorry, just thinking about the new project." It was a lie. She was thinking about Gavin. Marcus settled on her couch. "I was hoping we could talk about something tonight." "Of course." She sat, sensing the seriousness in his tone. "I've been thinking about us, about where this is going." He paused. "We've been seeing each other for 5 months now, and I really care about you, Millie. You're incredible. Everything I could want. I hear a but coming. But you're not here, not really. Physically, yes, but emotionally. You're somewhere else, or with someone else." "That's not fair." "It's completely fair," Marcus said gently. "I've watched you light up when your phone buzzes, then deflate when it's not who you hoped. You never mention your ex-husband, which tells me you're thinking about him constantly." Millie set down her wine. "Marcus, I'm not angry. We agreed to take things slow, and I think we both know where it went. Nowhere deeper than pleasant companionship." He took her hand. "You're an amazing woman, but you're not available. Not until you figure out what you're feeling about Gavin." "I'm not getting back together with him." "I didn't say you should. I just said you need to figure out what you're feeling. Right now, you're stuck." He stood, kissed her forehead. "Let's take a break. Maybe we can be friends someday. But right now, you need space." "Marcus, wait." "No, this is the right call and you know it." He smiled sadly. "Be honest with yourself, Millie. What do you actually want?" He left, and Millie sat in growing darkness. He was right. She'd been performing happiness, just like she'd performed being okay through the last years of her marriage. Her phone buzzed. Her sister Jordan. "Coffee tomorrow? You've been dodging my calls." Millie called back. "Can you come over tonight instead?" "That bad?" "Maybe. I don't know. I'll be there in 20. Jordan arrived with ice cream and wine. She took one look at Millie's face and said, "Marcus broke up with you. We mutually agreed to take a break." Translation: "He broke up with you because you're still in love with your ex-husband." "I don't know what I am." They settled on the couch. Jordan waited. "I ran into Gavin last month," Millie said finally. "At a coffee shop. We talked for maybe 20 minutes. It was the most honest conversation we've had in years. And I can't stop thinking about it. About him. The way he looked, broken and raw, and actually doing the work to fix himself." "What did your therapist say?" "That I'm protecting myself with busyness. That I haven't actually processed the divorce because I jumped from angry to moved on without dealing with the grief." "So deal with it now." "I don't know how." "Start by admitting what you're feeling, right here to me. What do you feel about Gavin?" Millie closed her eyes. "I miss him, not the marriage we had. That was broken, but him, the person I fell in love with." "Do you still love him?" "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just lonely and nostalgic. Those are different things." "I know. That's the problem. I can't tell the difference anymore." Jordan set down her ice cream. "Here's what I see. You spent 2 years being lonely. You had an affair. Gavin betrayed you. The divorce was necessary and painful, and now you're both healing separately. So maybe the question isn't whether you still love him. Maybe it's, what do you want your life to look like? And is there room for trying again with someone who hurt you?" "Trying again? Jordan, he destroyed me. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying you need to decide. Really decide. Face it head on. Could you forgive him? Could you trust him again?" Millie felt her throat tighten. "I don't know." "Then figure it out. Because this limbo isn't fair to you. It's not fair to Marcus. And it's not fair to Gavin either." After Jordan left, Millie did something she'd been avoiding. She went to her storage unit and pulled out the box labeled marriage. Wedding photos, anniversary cards, love letters. She sat on her floor surrounded by memories, letting herself feel everything. The grief, the anger, the sadness, but also the love that had existed underneath. She'd loved him, really, deeply loved him, and parts of her still did. Her phone buzzed. An email from Gavin. Subject: no response required. Heart hammering, she opened it. The email detailed his journey: therapy, volunteer work, reconnecting with family. He wrote about becoming the man he should have been. He thanked her for the grace in the coffee shop. He apologized, truly and deeply. He hoped she'd find happiness. P.S. I know you said no response required, but I mean it. You don't have to respond. She read it 3 times, tears streaming. She didn't respond. He'd given her permission not to, but she spent the weekend thinking, really thinking, not about what she should want, about what she actually wanted. By Sunday evening she didn't have an answer, but she had something else, a decision to stop performing. She called her therapist and scheduled 3 sessions for the following week. She texted Marcus, "Thank you for being honest. You were right about everything. I need time to figure out what I actually want." His response, "You didn't waste anything. Take care of yourself, Millie." She spent Monday clearing her calendar of every obligation that didn't matter, no more performing. In therapy that week, she finally said it. "I don't know if I've forgiven him. I don't know if I can trust him. I don't even know if I want to try, but I know I'm not done with him." Her therapist nodded. "What would it take for you to feel done?" "I don't know." "Closure, maybe? From him or from yourself?" The question hit hard. "I don't know how to give it to myself." Then maybe that's the work, figuring out how to close this chapter so you can move forward with clarity. 2 weeks later, on a crisp October morning, Millie stood in her office and felt something she hadn't felt in over a year. Certainty. Not about Gavin specifically, but about herself. She was strong enough to survive alone, whole enough to make choices from clarity rather than fear. She didn't need Gavin. She didn't need anyone. For the first time since that Christmas Eve text, Millie Ortega felt completely okay being exactly who she was, a powerful woman who'd survived betrayal and built a life she was proud of. Whatever came next, she'd face it from strength, not desperation, and that felt like victory. Chapter 10. Coming Home. The knock came on a Tuesday evening in late October, just as the sun painted Millie's living room gold. Through the peephole, she saw Gavin, and her heart did something complicated. She opened the door. He looked different, healthier, his hair cut shorter, wearing jeans and a sweater she didn't recognize. He held a single envelope. "I'm sorry to show up without calling," he said, "but I'm leaving town tomorrow and I needed to do this in person." "Leaving town?" "There's a job in Boston, senior position, fresh start. I accepted it this morning." Something cold settled in her stomach. "Boston. I need to get out of New York. Too many memories. Everywhere I look, I see us. I see what I destroyed." He held out the envelope. "This is for you. Everything I wanted to say but couldn't. Don't read it now. Read it after I'm gone." "When do you leave?" "Tomorrow afternoon." They stood in her doorway, the October evening cooling around them. "Come inside," Millie said. "We can't have this conversation on my porch." He followed her in. They sat in her living room, the same room where they'd had that disastrous dinner with Jenna. Different energy now. "What does this mean?" Gavin asked carefully. "That you don't want me to go?" "I don't know." Millie twisted her hands. "My therapist has been pushing me to figure out what I actually want. And I've been avoiding the answer because it's terrifying." "What's the answer?" "I think I want to try. Not to go back to what we were. That's dead. But maybe to build something new. To see if 2 broken people can create something whole." Gavin looked struck. "Are you serious?" "I'm terrified. I'm not sure I can trust you again, but I'm tired of pretending I don't miss you, tired of performing happiness when what I feel is incomplete." "Millie, I'm leaving tomorrow." Then don't take it. Stay, and we'll try. Really try. Couples therapy, honesty, hard work, rebuilding trust, and if it doesn't work, at least we'll know we tried. You're asking me to turn down a major opportunity on the possibility we might fix something I destroyed. Yes. She moved closer. Because I don't need you, Gavin. I'm successful, independent, whole on my own. But I want you. Despite everything, I still want you in my life. He was crying now. I don't deserve this. You're right. But I'm not offering it because you deserve it. I'm offering it because I deserve to try. I deserve to see if the man I fell in love with is still there. I deserve to find out if we can build something better. What if I hurt you again? Then I'll survive it. I survived the first time. I built an incredible life, but thriving isn't the same as being happy. Gavin reached for her hand, hesitant. She didn't pull away. If we do this, he said slowly, we do it right. We date. We start from scratch. Brutal honesty about everything, therapy together, and if it's not working, we end it cleanly. Agreed. I'll have to earn your trust piece by piece. That might take years. I know. Then yes. His voice broke. I'll stay. I'll call Boston tomorrow. I'll do whatever it takes, Millie. She kissed him, soft, tentative, full of possibility. He kissed her back like she was made of glass. When they pulled apart, they were both crying. This is crazy, Millie said, laughing through tears. What are we doing? Something brave, or something stupid, maybe both. He stood, still holding her hand. Thank you for this chance. I swear I will spend every day earning it. I know, and I'll spend every day trying to trust you again. He pulled her into a hug. She let herself melt into it. I love you, he whispered. I never stopped. I love you too, she said. Complicated and painful and mixed with hurt, but true. But love isn't enough. This time we need honesty, trust, commitment to the hard work. We'll have it. All of it. I promise. He left and Millie stood watching his car pull away. Her hands were shaking. She might have just made the biggest mistake of her life, or the bravest decision. She opened the envelope. Pages of his handwriting, detailing his journey, his realizations, his remorse. The last paragraph made her cry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but if by some miracle you give me another chance, I promise, I will show up every day. I will be present, honest, vulnerable, brave. I will love you with intention instead of convenience. I will be the partner you deserved all along. And if we can't make it work, I'll accept that with grace. You made me want to be better, Millie. I'll be grateful for that gift whether we end up together or not. She folded the letter and placed it in her wedding album. Maybe they wouldn't make it, but maybe they'd found each other at exactly the right time. When they were both whole enough to try, brave enough to risk it. Tomorrow evening at 7, she'd put on a dress and wait for him. They'd go to dinner as two people choosing each other intentionally, eyes open to the possibilities and risks. This time, Millie Ortega was the woman who fought for what she wanted. She was choosing vulnerability over safety, hope over certainty, love over self-protection. And whatever happened next, she'd face it with her heart finally, truly, bravely willing to try again. The end.